Please join me in welcoming our panel to the stage to talk with Bob Cusack. Shon Sharma is CEO of co-founder of Zearn. Josh Reese is the Systematic Transformation Lead at the University of Texas at Austin Dana Center. And Dr. Tim Hudson is the Chief Learning Officer at DreamBox Learning. Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for being with us today. Let me start off with just kind of a couple minutes on your interest, why you got in this, and your organization and their mission. Shalinee, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great to be here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shon Sharma, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zearn. Zearn is a nonprofit. We're a top-rated math learning platform used by 1 in 4 elementary school students across the country and more than 1 million middle school students. The core idea of Zearn is very simple, which is that all kids are math kids, and we can do work as adults to make that true. I'll talk about this more as we explore other questions, but in other countries, they do this. So it's not like we're the first people to get to the moon. We would be the 36th. So it's been done. In terms of my personal passion, contrary to what you might think, I wasn't, always a math kid. Through the course of my studies in mathematics, through high school, college, I would describe myself as someone who scraped by. I would just make it over the line, in that calculus class or in those variety of STEM classes. But all along, I have just always loved math, and it has a lot to do with what the woman just shared, which is just its beauty and meditative aspects. And actually all kids can access that. And when you talk to people who love math, they will start to talk about a couple things. They'll talk about 2 ideas. One is knowledge is power. So what's cool about math is when you get the question right, you know you're right. You don't have to wait for the teacher to tell you if you're right. And that's incredibly empowering for all children. And the second is that more time you spend with math, and particularly as you understand math as a few big ideas, not a series of skills, you start to see its beauty. You start to see that math is the language that describes motion on Earth, the motion of all the planets, the entire universe, music, art, architecture. It's actually the beauty all around us. And we can give kids all of that. I know it's ambitious, but that's what they are doing in other countries.
Josh?
Thank you. Josh Recio. I'm with the Charles A. Dana Center out of the University of Texas at Austin. And my father was a math teacher, which is why I swore I never would be. And I began to study statistics and decided I would teach sort of as I was pursuing a statistics master's degree. And it turns out I really liked what I was doing. I really appreciated the education work. I was able to teach statistics in high school, and at that time was really sort of pushing for more students to take a statistics course at that time, and still in a lot of places, calculus was sort of seen as the gold standard course. That was where everyone wanted to get to. But I could see the relevance of statistics for a lot of our students. So I really pushed for that. Years later, ended up working for the Dana Center, which was an organization I respected tremendously. And the work I do now is really about pathways for students, and it's really about opening up statistics pathways. We're working right now in 22 different states to help them think about what their, what courses they offer students as they sort of exit out of high school. We get through that Algebra 1 geometry point, and then what happens. And so it all sort of, came back around to what I started off doing, and it's work that I really appreciate.
Tim?
Thank you. I'm Tim Hudson, and I work for DreamBox Learning. I'm the Chief Learning Officer. If you don't know about DreamBox, we have math and reading solutions that are personalized software used by about 6 million students around the country for about an hour a week to complement what's happening in the classroom. And I think my journey in math is related to the work that I do at DreamBox as well, because so much of math, in my experience as a student, and maybe yours as well, I don't know, give me some nods here, felt a little sit and get. a little bit. You go into the room, the teacher tells you some stuff, and then you're supposed to like remember it. Nobody's like, I can't wait to find out what occurs to me in math today, right? Like that's not how it typically is. And so when I joined DreamBox years ago after having been a high school math teacher and district math leader, I wanted to build math experiences that felt to students like a game, where it was a think and do, not a sit and get. So at DreamBox, we don't have any video lectures or anything. We empower students to have their own ideas and really leverage technology to do things that can't be done without technology. So you can play chess without a computer, or you can play chess on a computer. But there's only one way to do Super Mario on the computer, and the same way with DreamBox's lessons. And students don't need to sit through a bunch of did anybody teach Fortnite classes to get kids good at Fortnite? Right, we know kids are brilliant and that they are able to learn things when they're given the kinds of experiences that empower them to think, that support their brilliance. And so also, as a district math coordinator, I was keenly interested in impact, right? And you've heard everybody talk about it this morning. How do we, this morning, what time is it? We've heard everybody talk about needing to move the needle, improving math achievement, and I'm proud that our math solution definitely does that. We're excited to have a couple studies out, about four or five over the past 2 years, showing we've curtailed learning loss. So a lot of the districts using our solutions didn't have that learning loss. We have a first of its kind study with 77,000 students in South Carolina showing that students were 3 times more likely to achieve the state growth targets if they were below grade level when they used DreamBox, and students at the higher end were twice as likely. So really proud of that impact, all because we know students are brilliant and we want to empower that brilliance.
Shalinee, Zern's focus is on K through 5th curriculum courses, and you mentioned other countries, and actually that was something I wanted to get into. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because the United States is very focused on the United States, but what can we learn internationally?
Yeah, so Zearn, it was K-5,
Okay.
and we have launched middle school. So
Okay.
all of 6-8 is out, and there's 1 million kids now on 6-8.
1 million, right.
So it's off to the races. When you think about other countries, so just I happened to recently go to Japan. Just as a background knowledge, Japan is a country where we can say, oh, all kids are math kids. And then you can say, well, where in the world is that true? And the closest to that being true is Japan. So to give you a sense, their lowest performing students in 9th grade would be proficient by our standards. So you're doing pretty good, much better than us. Now, I'm not proposing that we then model ourselves after Japan on every dimension of our society. I'm sure there are things that are not working well in Japan. But it is interesting that kids are successful there, and shockingly successful compared to our kids. As a reminder, our 8th graders, 26% are proficient on the NAEP in 8th grade math, right? So that's not even algebra. That's the year before algebra. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is, what are those countries doing?
Right.
Japan has been able to show these kinds of academic results for 50 years, 50, compared to what we've been able to show. So, Zearn is a software-based solution that is used in classrooms and does the work and supports the work of great teachers. Japan didn't have technology 50 years ago. They weren't deploying software. They weren't doing personalized learning. They just weren't. And so I say that to you as somebody who is leading a nonprofit that has a software solution. And so we also can't say, oh, there'll be some magical software solution, then it'll all work. Because that's just not true. What we look at when we look at countries where mathematics is successful, we see some differences in how they approach mathematics. Number one, they don't get into math wars. That's like what we do. They don't. They don't fight over should children learn concepts or procedures. They're like, both. Okay. We get into a war on that. That's the equivalent of, in English, saying, should a child be able to sound out this word and read it? Like the word comprehension. Should a child be able to sound that out? Or should they know what the word comprehension means? How about both? And so the first thing on all countries that exceed us in mathematics, they don't have math wars. They don't say, oh, children should have fluency in their basic math facts versus students should understand what multiplication means. We do that. The second thing is that they work very hard in how they present concepts to children. So, one of my favorite examples that I love to ask mathematicians is, why is 3 times 0, 0? So I'd ask folks in the room, like, anybody want to share, why is 3 times 0, 0? And if your answer is, it's a convention, n times 0 is 0, 8 times 0 is 0, a million times 0 is 0, that is correct, it is a convention. But there's an axiomatic proof of that convention. And 8-year-olds in high-performing countries are presented with that proof. And that proof is really simple, which is, imagine you have 3 plates of cookies, and on the 3 plates, there are 3 cookies on each plate. So if you think of that, that's 9 cookies. And so the first 3 is the number of plates, and the second 3 is the number of cookies. Now imagine if you have 3 plates and 1 cookie on each plate. Well, then you have 3 cookies. Well, imagine now if you have 3 plates and there are 0 cookies on each plate. Well, that is very upsetting because there are no cookies, right? And how can you ever forget that, right? Because you don't give me cookies. You'll never forget that. And so then that's why 8 times 0 is 0, n times 0 is 0, a million times 0 is 0. So we can present math at that axiomatic deep level if we wanted to. We just don't. We don't allocate the time. We don't support teachers with curricular materials, with training. For example, earlier we were talking about not having math expertise at the elementary school level, which can be done with math teachers allocated. There's a bunch of strategies we can use to do that. So anyway, where I'd leave it is, those are the differences. And if technology then amplifies that, multiplies that, supports teachers with those kinds of differences, yeah, we'll see some changes. If technology actually furthers the math we are doing right now, we're not going to see any changes.
Josh, if you had a magic wand, what's something that frustrates you that you would fix with that wand?
Just one thing?
You got to pick one. Yeah, got to pick one.
I'll start with this one. There are a lot of amazing things happening in math education right now. I talked about opening pathways for students that are outside of the sort of traditional sequence of courses that students take. That algebra, geometry, algebra 2 that was talked about earlier, that's designed to send students on a singular pathway toward calculus. A lot of great things are happening to sort of veer away from that. So you're seeing data science courses pop up in places and other opportunities. The magic wand, if I had, would be to ask the next question, which is, these other pathways are great, these data science courses are great, all of these new things we're doing are great, but who has access to them? And right now, we still have an issue with that. There are still a lot of students that don't have access to the sort of these new things or the best opportunities within their math education. And so the work that we do at the Dana Center is very much focused on how do we make sure that any student, no matter where they come from, no matter their background, no matter their experiences, that they have access to those high quality math education. And I think that if the magic wand existed, I think that's where I would go first.
Tim, kind of same question to you. What's the biggest problem that could be tackled? I know you also focus on technology. Is that help? That's both, we've talked about AI earlier, and there's some concern, it could be great help, but you got to be cautious about it.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem here as we close out, getting close to the end of this, I think one of the biggest problems facing mathematics is there's a question out there that I don't think any of us have a good answer for, let alone a shared and agreed answer upon. And it's a fundamental question. What is math? If I asked you to write down your answer right now, where would it be? It'd be all over the place. So we've heard a lot of great ideas, but at its core, when I told people in college I was a math major, they were like, oh, what's 4,336 times 84.3? Like, what do you think we do, right? And so probably right now you're thinking, oh, math is computation, relationships, patterns, shapes maybe. But architects do that, sociologists do that, economists do that. And so what makes math, math? And I won't leave you hanging. The best definition I've found is Dr. Eugenia Chang. She's written a couple books about math, and it's simple. Math is the logical study of how logical things work. So, political science is not really a logical thing, but people are doing logical study of it, right? We know immunology. There's a logical study there, but how our bodies respond to things is not logical, even though we can find some patterns. And anybody proved triangles were congruent in high school? And you're like, okay, well, it's a triangle. It's got 3 sides, 3 angles. Is it the same as this one? Like, everything is stripped away. It's a logical thing. And the question is, okay, what's the minimum amount of information we need to know about these triangles to confirm, yeah, they're the same? But you can't ask a geneticist that. Show me the smallest amount of DNA to conclude this person has brown eyes. Like, nothing works that way. So why this is important for this particular conversation is 2 reasons. And one, as Shalinee said a second ago, like, that's what the axiomatic approach is. That's a logical thing. There's logical reasoning there. But if we tell students every day that math is something you're going to use in everyday life, and that's a half-truth. It's not a promise we can keep. So when students say, when am I ever going to have to use this? That's not a complaint about math. That's a reaction to our false advertising. So we need to own that. And the second reason that's important is because students have that innate ability to reason logically about logical things. We were talking about pigs a little bit earlier. I don't know about their math skills, but I do know that baby chickens can do basic addition. Bees understand 0 as a number, which is pretty, humans didn't even know that for a while. And I know under the right conditions that 4th graders, they can invent the idea of unit fractions in under a week, just the same way the ancient Egyptians did and used for hundreds of years. We can talk about that later if you want. So students have that innate ability to reason logically. We just need to reframe it. So imagine if we said to students, look, life is hard. Throughout your whole life and career, you're going to be navigating situations where there's not enough information. There's too many variables. Everything is shifting. You don't know the right decision. You don't know how things are going to turn out. It's impossible to know. But hey, in math class, we strip all that away. We're just looking at things that we can control so that we can become better thinkers about those things that are out of our control. That would be what I would change.
Why don't we open up for questions for any of the panelists or all of them? If you can wait for the, if you can raise your hand if you had a question. Another one up front.
Paulo Di Maria again from the National Association of State Boards of Education. Big fan of each of your organizations and the things that you do. I want to go back to the point you made that fundamentally, if we simply use technology to keep doing the things that we're doing, we're not really going to make a difference. Because I think that what I distill from that is it then comes down to that interaction in the classroom between the teacher, the content, and the children. Can you say a little bit, because I look at the firepower that's here on the stage and probably the firepower that's here in the room, and I keep thinking the literacy people have tipped. There's definitely tremendous momentum on the science of reading and changing the reading experience for our students. And I think seeing a lot of results. I loved the classroom experience because it showed us that teachers are sometimes scared. Change is hard, and they don't trust their own judgment to think that this thing I'm looking at is going to make a difference, that my students will be able to handle it, that I'll be able to handle it. How do we bring ourselves together to actually put forth a set of actions and strategies that will lead to the kind of change that could, in fairly short order, start to make a big difference?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for your question. I think that's a really big question, and I can't answer how do we come together and tip like literacy, but I would love to get to that answer, but I don't have it. Let me offer some thoughts in that direction. With regard to literacy, they started, it's easy for me to say this, but they started at an easier place, because nowhere in the United States of America do people think that when children can't read, it's because those children can't read and why are you being mean to them? Because they can do other things. Like, nobody thinks like that. When children can't read in large, if the large group of children are behind in reading metrics, in America, we get really mad at the adults. Why don't those adults teach those kids to read? What is wrong with them? Now, in this exact same country, in 2023, richest country in all of human history, when children can't do mathematics, we are like, please don't be mean to those kids. They are creative. They have other passions. They love ballet. And you're like, what does that have to do with math? And so there's no expectation still. And that's why our challenge is harder in mathematics. We first have to get mad. in terms of expectations that all kids can succeed in mathematics. And that's why I start with other countries. It's other humans are doing it, so we have to be able to do it. Now, in terms of the kind of steps, I really do think we have to understand some aspects of pedagogy, and specifically content pedagogy. So if you look at what they're talking about in literacy, they're talking about 3Qing, which is basically looking at 3 cues, the picture, guessing what the word was, and then moving to phonics. So actually knowing what the sounds and the letters make, learning that, and sounding out the word. So what's that in math? In math, what that is us careening from one side to the other of our own made-up math words. These math words are not replicating in 197 countries across the globe, so they can't be real. There are other things that replicate, like love, like friendship. We have things that we see in societies all around the world, and so we can say, oh, those are more real things. But our math wars are just ours. They're largely to get like a like on social media. That seems to be the purpose of them. And so the first thing I think we have to do is really just move past some nonsense math wars, which is what I was talking about. Those are things like you don't pick between procedures and concepts, you do both. And then where I would end is really using strategies we see in the top performing countries and getting excited about those, which are using the strategies of pictures, representations, making math pictorial. And so the concept is concrete to pictorial to abstract. This is the pedagogy we see in the top performing countries universally. And that's a pedagogy we have to bring in. And so, in upper level mathematics, that is drawing graphs, drawing images. In elementary school mathematics, that is concrete objects. And so I'd say those are some of my answers moving in that direction.
Can I add just one quick thing to the getting frustrated with students or not wanting to be mad at the students who aren't successful? The way that we've talked about what is good at math is getting an answer right, or which especially in early grades is based on the fact that kids are just naturally good at getting the answer right in a math problem. What we have to do is start rewarding the effort, the work that they're putting in, the problem solving that they're going through, and not just think about it as who's right and who's wrong.
I'll give you the last word, 30 seconds.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think by and large, even though there are some math wars, everyone probably agrees, hopefully, that sense-making should be a goal. I've worked with plenty of students who can do procedures perfectly. I know I could. Anybody borrow and subtract perfectly? I could do that in school, but then when I went to the store and gave them a $10 bill for a $6.84 thing, and they counted 85, 80, they counted up to 10, I was like, what sorcery is this? Because I hadn't made sense of those things. So as long as we have that common goal, math isn't a spectator sport. Students are brilliant, and as long as we invite them to think for themselves, we're going to be successful. Because when you think about it, math just makes sense.
Well, we are at a time, there's a great discussion on math that included chickens and cookies and pigs, which was not on my bingo card. Please thank the panelists for joining us.
On behalf of the Collaborative for Student Success, I just wanted to say I hope you all enjoyed the programming today. I also want to remind you that the last polling question actually asks you to rank various messages that you've seen today. If you haven't yet done that, please take the time to do so. I hope you'll stay in touch with us, the Collaborative for Student Success. If you'd like to learn more about us, find us at forstudentsuccess.org. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and that concludes our program. You can find the entire program on thehill.com/events, as well as our YouTube page. And thank you all for joining us today.